I would like to introduce my panelists. So I would like to start with our abroad guest. So I would like to introduce DJ Nak, President of Innovaito. Please, DJ, if you could tell a few words about yourself.
Dzień dobry. It's wonderful to be back here in Warsaw and seeing this energy amongst all of you. Especially I want to commend the MIT GSW for bringing in so many students into the mix. And we'll talk about the importance of the entrepreneurial spirit. So my name is DJ Nag, and again, it's a pleasure to be back in Poland here. I come from a background of technology transfer. I used to work at 3 different US universities, taking technologies to the market. And we'll talk about some of the intellectual property strategy and startup ecosystem formation. I will share something very personal with you with the experience that I took away from the Polish ecosystem. I've been talking about the success of Poland in a country not too far, in Bulgaria. So I've been working very closely in Bulgaria.
Sorry to interrupt. Just a quick reminder to our panel guests just to speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. So everyone can hear me? Okay, awesome. So it's really a pleasure to see the advancement of Poland in this startup game and the call to action. I'll keep my comments very brief. I come from the university technology transfer background, intellectual property strategy background, and very briefly at the US government, at the National Science Foundation, I was advising them on IP and technology transfer policy. So it's a pleasure to be here in this panel, and I look forward to interacting with you later today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also could add that DJ Nak is observing the Poland ecosystem from many years, so he could provide us a perspective how it evolves. So now I would like to introduce Ala Santos, who is a CEO of Polonium Foundation. Ala, please tell us a few words about you.
Sure. Hi. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ala Santos. And I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for the invite. My background, I guess, main thing is I'm Polish, born and raised in here. I was educated in Poland, at least through my initial stage of education at the Technical University of Lodz. And from there, I've been studying in many different places. And I ended up doing my PhD at the University of Chicago in biochemistry and molecular biology. So researcher and scientist is who I am in the core. And everything else is really trying to be utilitarian in that science and research approach. So right after PhD, I went to work in corporate America and Fortune 100 company. I was a new technology team lead at Abbott Labs for infectious diseases for transfusion medicine. And throughout the years of PhD and in the corporate world, I started advising both startups and on occasion venture capital as well. For startups, I do it until now. I support super early stage startups, primarily in the US, for basically the first steps of going into commercializing innovation. So I love working with researchers that have an idea and want to move on with it as a startup. And for venture capital, I would do investment opportunity assessment and a whole bunch of other due diligence bits. And today I'm also in the capacity of the CEO of Polonium Foundation, and that's a non-profit organization registered here in Poland, but gathering Polish scientific diaspora all around the world. And our motto is changing brain drain into brain circulation. I'm going to leave you with that. That's my minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Ala. Now I would like to introduce Marcelina, who is who works for Foundation of Polish Science and is responsible for new program, Prime. Please tell us a few words about yourself.
That's right. Thank you. I also have a scientific background, as everyone here. A PhD in neurobiology, and very, very early on during my path, I realized that working in the research organization, which was focused mainly on the basic research, I would like to have more social impact with my work and with my science and with my knowledge. And I transferred myself to the Foundation for Polish Science, which is the biggest non-governmental and independent source of money for research ecosystem and scientific ecosystem in Poland. And the foundation was born as to answer the need in the early 90s to stop the intellectual property and intellectual capacity outflow after the Iron Curtain was demolished. And each decade, we faced a different challenge. And now the foundation would like to answer the different challenge, the challenge of the innovation leakage, the intellectual property leakage from Poland, the challenge of how to exploit research data into the social and the market impact. And to answer that challenge and to answer that need for Polish research ecosystem, we created, exactly like Robert said, Prime Project, which is technology transfer accelerator. And it's not a big surprise that I'm not telling that this is the spin-off accelerator, because we would like to accelerate knowledge transfer, technology transfer, human transfer, and setting up, of course, startups to help researchers to translate their research and then data and the scientific impact into the global scale. So Foundation is here to help Polish researchers, and I'm here to run that accelerator and to make a difference. So I'm also transferring my love for research into the social impact. So I would like to pass my voice to Robert again.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, we have a startup CEO, Piotr Byrski. He is a CEO of molecule.one. Please, Piotr, tell us about yourself.
Thanks very much for the invitation, for the short introduction. I'm probably the person with the least scientific background here, counterintuitively. My background is in medicine. I'm a medical doctor by training, with some training in chemistry and mathematics. Always been mostly excited about stuff that happens at the intersection of those disciplines. That eventually led me out of the academic world and into founding my own company, molecule.one. And at molecule.one, we are building the world's first fully autonomous laboratory run by an AI agent for chemistry. And while I'm not a scientist myself, I interact with scientists a lot every day. What we do is very scientific on both the deep learning side and the chemistry side. In particular, we operate, I think, the world's fastest organic chemistry laboratory in terms of the number of experiments we execute. And we have created state-of-the-art models for synthesis planning, actually about 2 or 3 times. So yeah, that's us. I'm super happy to share my perspective. Thanks very much to the organizers for inviting me, and looking forward.
Thank you very much. So summarizing, we have a startup perspective, supporters perspective, and university perspective. So let's go with the next question. So where are we now in the science commercialization in Poland? So just to introduce this question, so what is the scale of science commercialization in Poland? So, for example, number of companies originating from universities is up to now from 90s, let's say, is about 400. So there is a lack of precise data. And for example, Stanford alone start with 1,500 companies. So my, let's say, feeling is that if when it comes to the science commercialization, we are at the early stage of development, comparing to the mature ecosystems, let's say. And my question to panelists is if you could comment and answer the question, could you name one strength and one critical challenge that Poland faces today? So let's start with Piotr.
Okay, perfect. So I think many of you will agree with me when I will say that the biggest strength is the human capital that we have here in Poland. The quality of the talent and the work ethics, the dedication that people in Poland show to their work is something that I think a lot of other countries can envy. And we've been very blessed with our entire team. We're 29 people now. We'll probably be growing a little bit in the next few months. But both on the computer science side and on the chemistry side, we're extremely blessed with who we get to work with. In terms of the biggest challenge, that's actually a very interesting question. There are definitely many challenges, as is typical of an early stage of a journey. I would probably settle with Polish people, Polish scientists, Polish technical folks as well, not being brave enough and not being maybe even cocky enough to go out there to brag about what they have done. I can say personally, it has been a very big challenge for me. I was brought up more in a very humble way, that I was taught that bragging is not something that you should do publicly. And while I value that very much, I now prefer a more balanced approach where you stay very humble internally, like you don't get don't get too excited with what you've done already, because there's so much more to do in the future. But also at the same time, to get the interest of investors, especially international investors, and especially investors from the United States, which is definitely not the first one to call it the country of salesmen. To get their interest, you need to be a salesman yourself. And I think that's where we still need to grow, and I am happy to be a part of that growth.
Thank you. Marcelina, if I could ask you now.
Sure.
Strength and critical challenge.
I would say that I see the one thing, not only one thing, but if I might choose one thing, as both challenge and strength, which is the lack of procedures, regulations, and frameworks in Poland. And I think we are facing the times when we are emerging, we are thinking more about commercialization, technology transfer, and if we do not have rules, we can create those. But to do so, you need to be bold, you need to be courageous, you need to be very, very responsible for what you do with your ethics, like Piotr said. We are amazingly ethical people, researchers in Poland, but we are not courageous enough, we're not bold enough to create these rules. We would like to have these rules to follow, but it doesn't work like that. Right now, we could be responsible for creating the rules and procedures and protocols for commercialization in Poland. And foundation was always maybe not the deal breaker, but we challenge the existing frameworks of how commercialization should be done, how the conducting research should be done, and we've been creating our own rules, and we encourage you all to create your own, because you're responsible for the creation of that impact, and we can help you with that. The whole structure can help you with that, but the whole beauty of this decade in Poland is that we don't need to follow, we can create. So that's comment from my end.
Okay, thank you. Ala, if you could give us your...
I would add maybe to what was said already, especially by Piotr, about the main good side. I would say that it is talent, but also there is the international community of people with Polish background, and you can always tap into that social capital. So this Polish diaspora of researchers very often start off as PhD students, postdocs, and they end up becoming experts in their field. Some of them stay in academia, and some of them go to industry, some of them go into institutions that could be of use for Polish-born startups. So please, the folks in here that maybe need a little bit more of international support, reach out to Polonium Foundation, but also reach out to your colleagues abroad. Just anecdote, I'm here only a couple of days, adjusting to the time zone, right? I live in LA, but constantly I talk with my friends from Poland, from the scientific world, about their ideas, and also what blocks them from going into the startup world. Blows my mind that with ideas like that, they are not rushing in, right? So yeah, yesterday morning I had a breakfast and I was talking with a really good friend of mine that I know from one of the exchanges, and he has a brilliant idea and so many hesitations. I am meeting a whole bunch of people and here in Warsaw, also my colleagues, and I know that they have great ideas. Again, I had a conversation a couple days ago with somebody who started Accelerator in Poland, and they're like, we don't have enough applications, not enough ideas. There are ideas, oh, believe me, because I hear idea per week from a Polish colleague of mine, and they tell me that idea because they trust me. And that brings me to the challenge. I think fear is one thing, what Piotr said, but also that fear comes from a lack of trust to the system, to the ecosystem that is functioning right now. This concept of innovation broker, the way universities are transferring the innovations that come from the universities. There is also lack of experience and maybe the procedural holes that might make you think that somebody wants to take an advantage of you if you have an idea. So again, to the scientists out there, researchers out there, please find a way to get out from this mindset and try to think about your ideas as something that can be globally applicable. And think bigger than just the little challenges of the Polish ecosystem. Think about your innovations as global improvements. And don't be afraid to think about it in a global manner. And don't be afraid to reach out and contact your broader network, not only in Poland, because Poland might be helped, the ecosystem that we have in here can be really helped by their international social capital of the diaspora.
Thank you, Ala. DJ, please.
So the way I look at an ecosystem, there are really 4 elements. It's the entrepreneur, it's the risk capital, it's the technology, and it's the intellectual property. So those 4 make up for a successful ecosystem. My observation as an outsider, let me start giving you some numbers. So in the United States, we spend about $150 billion a year in R&D every year. So no wonder we have a lot of startups. Give or take, we create about 1,200 startups from the universities every year. Some numbers would indicate we're about 5,000 to 6,000 startups active today. From academia through technology transfer. So Poland is actually not that far off if you look at the size of Poland and if you look at the size of the United States. I would say actually Poland is not early stage anymore. You have to say you're mid stage or later stage, getting towards later stage in terms of an ecosystem. So what do I see as the biggest strength? I think the biggest strength is sitting right next to me. It's the entrepreneurs. You have phenomenal entrepreneurs. And in the last 40 years or so, the shifting of the culture and bringing the entrepreneurial spirit in this culture has been just really something to admire from outside. The challenge, I would say, is in two respects. Poland has enough of a size of population that you can serve that country's population through a product or service. But it's not large enough that you are becoming a global company, right? So in that respect, if you look at intellectual property, it's one of the areas where every large company like a Google or a Facebook or Microsoft, you name it, you need to be global with your intellectual property strategy. I think Poland is somewhat local in that respect. So if you could think of it as both an opportunity and a challenge, it's a great incubator for a company to be formed and serving a successful market, but it's not large enough that it's thinking about the outside. And the last point that I'm going to mention is I come from the Midwest. So I've lived in Nebraska, in Ohio, and if you're from the US, you know exactly that culture. Poland has a very US Midwest culture. You're very humble. Just like Piotr said, I think you need to be a little bit more aggressive to the world, saying how much of a great technology ecosystem you have and showcase that, right? So I think, I see great opportunities in the Polish ecosystem, and you have now become a model for a lot of other countries. We'll hopefully talk about that.
Okay, thank you. So I could also tell from my personal perspective that definitely we lack, or the challenge is that just to make a procedure and strategy for making decision at the universities, because from my perspective, the decision about sharing some IPs or just setting a startup from the university is always made independently, as an independent case. So there are no procedure, no standards, and that is a problem because if you want to set up 50 startups per year, you have 50 independent decision analysis and so on. And these decisions are on the level of rector or vice rector, so they are very busy people. So it takes very long. So if we get some kind of standard procedure that is approved from the point of view of economical improvement, safety for university or for decision makers, and clear and simple for startups, founders, then it should work really good. And I agree totally that we have very good people. Too shy, but they are experienced, learning, and well-educated. So that is our strength. Okay, so thank you for this part. So now let's try to identify the key barriers. So if you could, if I could ask maybe Marcelina, if you think that the Polish researchers are naturally open to collaboration, or we have some cultural barriers to do that. What do you think?
Cultural blockage. I would definitely disagree. Looking how widely and how openly our researchers, foundational supported researchers, are eager to collaborate. I might say that they're very, very open. They're excellent in cooperation. They're not really good enough to identify collaborators from the market, for example. They're really great in looking for opportunities to expand their scientific network, but I think they might think broader. Now I think we are facing the paradigm shift in research excellence, when you're not only excellent researchers when you publish excellent, when you conduct your research excellent, you're excellent if you're able to identify the social challenges and the market challenges, and you're trying to address it. So I think that is the main objective right now, to change your way of thinking in collaboration. Not only look for research collaborators, but try to think differently, reshape your way of thinking about your research, how you might be, that is a very ugly word, useful, but you're, I don't like that word, but it's a good word to paint the perspective. What kind of entity could be interested in your idea and knowledge? And the issue in Poland is that the innovation and the R&D department in Polish enterprises was built on Polish scientists' shoulders, because they tend to think, enterprises used to, again, very bad word, exploit researchers as contractors only. And the researchers in Poland tend to think about themselves that they could be only contractors, not the future creators, not the innovation creators, but sourcing from that experience to collaborate, to thinking how my knowledge and my research could be used in the market. Now I think it's a good time to think differently about yourself, about your research, about your impact and your knowledge, and your intellectual property. I'm intellectual property freak, absolute, and I think that that shift should be done in researchers' minds, to think about themselves as an impact creator, as a global change creator.
Can I add one sentence? I wholeheartedly agree with Marcelina's point about the impact. I think we live in very, very interesting and impactful times, and if we waste them, history will judge us harshly. That's my point of view, and it honestly pains me to see super intelligent people, my friends, working on non-critical challenges like sorry to my quant friends, for example, but I encourage everyone that is sitting here, please think about climate change, about uncured diseases, about making life multiplanetary. This is the time to do it.
If I just compliment it, just one sentence. The wind of change is blowing in slightly different direction than in the early 90s. It's blowing not only from the west, like we tend to think. It's blowing from the east as well. And it's blowing really, really strongly. And like Piotr said, if we will not identify ourselves as an impact-driven force as researchers, we will be in the real huge danger in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So again, I see two challenges, barriers, if you will. Let's start with the first one, because we in the US have the same barrier as well. It's convergence of research with the market. So we have long talked about, the product market fit. We're just coming to the realization that there has to be a research market fit. And that is easier said than done, to have scientists work on problems of tomorrow, not 20 years from today, but 10 years from today, perhaps, right? So that's one challenge that we need to, encourage the scientists to solve problems of tomorrow. The other one, which we have overcome in the US somewhat, so how many people have here heard of the name Robert Langer, since we are sitting at the MIT Venture conference here? Okay, a few. So, you know, Professor Langer is one of the most commercially motivated scientists in the US, in the world, I would say. And thanks to his research, you know, we have solved or partially solved the COVID situation, right? So he's done this many times over. But the reason it has worked in the US well is something called the Bayh-Dole Act, which allowed scientists to actually have an upside through regulation in their inventions, right? So if I commercialize an invention that makes $10 million, a third of that goes to the scientist, no questions asked. And that policy of setting aside, you know, revenues for inventors, for universities to do further commercialization, has really dictated the world of technology transfer. And it started in 1980. We can almost go back and take a look at how tech transfer has done so well. Coming back to the process, I think, you know, that dedicated and defined process allows an ecosystem to thrive using, you know, a defined model for giving credit to the people who deserve it the most.
Thank you.
I have two stories for you, and both come from a boot professor that was telling it to the scientist at the Entrepreneurial Full Science and Medicine course. The first one I did mention to you, he used to have a quote because the class was divided between a whole bunch of MBA students and a small group of actual researchers. And he would say, you know what, to the researchers, it is kind of easy to teach a researcher if they want to, Piotr, if they want to, and if they have the good predisposition to it, to learn business. It takes 2 years of MBA, of great education, of quick training, and you can learn business, researchers. But to teach business people science that many of you spent quarter of a century, that is much harder task to do. I know it does not apply to all of the situations and to all of the researchers. Some of the researchers are just too into the bees way. And what do I mean by the bees way? That's my second story. The same Professor Scott Meadow, he's actually a very good connector between the researchers and the business people. He would say, well, researchers, they are trained to be bees. So it means that they work in a very systematic, very shaped way. And there is an experiment of putting in the bees to the bottle inside, and the bees have no way to get out from the bottle because they are too systematic about it. And it takes forever to get the bee out of the bottle. But if you put in flies into the same bottle, and they move like crazy, they're not systematic at all. They are just trying to do stuff. They're just pushing through. They are just hustling. And flies get out of the bottle in no time in comparison to bees. So I am still in the core scientist. And sometimes if I get stuck in that bee way, I'm like, okay, be a fly now. It's taking too long. Be a fly. Be a little bit more desperate. Be a little bit more chaotic. Be a little bit more explorative. Do things that you wouldn't normally do. Sorry about that. So to all of the researchers out there, I know that you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the bee way. And I'm telling you to be, every now and then, especially if you are inclined by the idea of entrepreneurship, to be a little bit of a fly.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
My name was brought up, so...
Piotr, if I could interrupt you, I also would like if you could support Ala's, and also if you could tell about what do you think, what kind of specific support is most lacking for startups, for tech startups in Poland?
Absolutely. So, yeah, first, commenting on what Ala said, I very much like the bee and fly analogy. And I think that it actually should be pretty natural for scientists because, in a way, doing a deep tech company where there is no proven way, like you're really trying to push the frontier, is just one big experiment. and you design an experiment, you perform it, you get the data, you analyze the data, and that informs your next decision. And this is like, there's no way, like when I think about the plans that we made 5 years ago for the company, so very few of them have actually materialized, but so many of those that we haven't made back then that are even more exciting have materialized. And this is something that we have learned. It wasn't easy for me. I was a B, but it really pays off to treat it as an iterative exercise of finding the truth and finding the right way, not planning it all. About the teaching a scientist to do business, I have a slightly different opinion. I think it is really hard in a way because a lot of it has more to do with like soft skills and character than hard skills that you can learn at an MBA or anything. But I think it's also essential that anyone who wants to commercialize the research in the form of a spin-off company, of a startup company, is serious about running that company. In my opinion, it's very hard to be full-time running a company and at the same time be a full-time scientist at the university. I don't think it can be done. And now to Robert's question. So in terms of what is lacking, I think that the biggest, there's definitely lack of capital, but maybe let me dive a little bit deeper into what that means specifically. The Polish venture ecosystem is still more focused on, I would say, more generalist startups, B2B, B2C, and then not a lot of investors are willing to take that, in a way, bigger risk of investing in a deep tech company. I could probably only name a few. And most of them are already on my board. So that naturally pushes you to look for capital abroad. And there we have these challenges of the American investors wanting to see a glimpse of not $1 billion, $100 billion opportunity. That's what they want to see. And an investor would, if you give them a 30% chance of a $1 billion company and a 1% chance of a $10 billion company or $30 billion company, they're always going to go for the second because that's how their math works. And even though the expected value doesn't really compute, that's how the fund math works, and you need to get there. We have a source of capital that could be a big strength. I'm talking about the grants, EU funds, also national funds. There are, however, challenges, and I would love to use the opportunity to talk about some of them. So we're doing one of the Smart Path grants run by PARP, Polish agency for entrepreneurship development, and it's a great way to de-risk the project early because it may be at a stage where it's too risky, and especially with the challenges in science funding in the United States, this could be Europe's strength and Poland's strength as well. But the bureaucratic overhead on running a grant as a company that is oriented on achieving certain business goals is absolutely too much. And I think that we should have a very serious conversation about what is really needed to weed out the people that want to abuse the funds without, as we say in Poland, wylewanie dziecka z kąpielą, which means that without actually damaging the chances of others. So yeah, I would say that the access to capital is definitely challenging. You need to go abroad. You need to go abroad early. and you need to have a global mindset from day one if you want to achieve that.
Okay, thank you. I could add from my perspective that I think that the barrier is that when the scientists think about the research and apply for the grants or for any type of financial support for the research, they very rarely ask themselves or other people if my research will be useful when I finish it. So I think that one of the barriers is just to try to convince researchers that they could ask before writing an application. Maybe they could adjust or a little change their ideas in the grant, just to make a situation that at the successful finishing of the research, they could find easily the business case, the business use case that they could apply. Then not so many funds will be just maybe not wasted because the research is growing, but they will be utilized in a business.
May I have a comment on that?
Of course.
I was actually thinking about it today because Kathleen brought up AlphaFold, and it reminded me of a few years ago when I was in the lab above John's Jumper lab, and he was showing me his protein folding algorithms that he was playing with in the lab of Tobin Sosnick, and it was hardcore biophysics lab, completely basic science lab. And to think about the fact that, John Jumper is one of the AlphaFold founders, and he just got a Nobel Prize last fall. He was very basic science-minded, meaning he didn't plan on creating a commercial thing. He wanted to he wanted to make a progress in how scientists operated in their own field and our own understanding of how protein folding works. And that core need of a scientist to progress the field, that was enough, along with a whole bunch of other smart and also clever business people and some good business decisions, that brought that basic science to what AlphaFold is. And all my friends at Big Pharma, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Novartis, and in academia use AlphaFold daily. It is crazy that it came from completely basic science. So every time I hear right now the argument that you just mentioned, that scientists should think about not only basic science, but the final commercial application, I agreed with it for a long time, and I still do agree with it for the most part. But you do have to remember that the basic science is the main driver, and this is the seed of everything. And the power is on the side of researchers, and it will be for as long as we are going to be science-based startups, right?
Yes, one comment only.
So quick comment. So the nomenclature matters. There's a reason scientists are actually working at a university. They do not like commercial, they do not like business. They like translation. So we use translation quite a bit, okay? So that's one important point. The other point is, going back to what Piotr said, we have actually set aside in the US grants for startups for commercialization, okay? So the small business innovation research grants are for only startups, not for universities. And this is for translation, okay? Through the CHIPS and Science Act, we had set aside almost $200 billion towards translation of science. I used to work at the National Science Foundation, and we had a TIP directorate that was specifically for commercialization grants. So it will get rid of all the bureaucracy. So I think, there are grants and there are grants, okay? There's grants for basic research, and there should be grants for translational science that helps in quick translation. So I think that distinction is important.
I also mean that in Poland we have more than 20 technical universities, which are in many cases starting to do basic research. Maybe it's some way, but in my opinion, they could be more focused on applied science. So it means with horizon, with practical applications. So that was maybe I not specified.
Completely agree, yeah.
Marcelina, you?
Yeah, quick comment to just what you and DJ said about grants and grants. A couple of years ago, the foundation identified and wanted to address the need to fund translational research. And we completely shifted from granting money for basic research solely to almost 100% transfer our program to fund translational research. So, for example, we have really quick, dynamic program, which is proof of concept, which you could, in 12 months, verify your hypothesis, conduct your experiment, whether my hypothesis that my research data could be useful, could be translational useful for the market. You can verify that hypothesis in very, very scientific way, but spend that money, use that money just to verify it. And what is even more important, that we accept positive and negative result of that hypothesis checked as well. I mean, this is your idea, this is your hypothesis, this is your way of conducting research to check whether that would be scalable.
This is absolutely key. I just wanted to echo that we need to be okay with failures. We need to encourage failures, because if it's only about success, then we're going to just aim too low. Sorry for interrupting.
No, absolutely. Go on.
No, sorry.
Praise us.
I just wanted this sentence.
So this is our approach. This is one of the many, many programs we have in the foundation to support translational research. We have programs for consortia to force cooperation again. We have programs to set up your first team, scientific team, and collaborate with the research partners and the market partners. And still, we have Prime Project to transfer your ideas into the startups. So our whole perspective shifted from science solely, basic science, to translational science. So I think we identified that need and that urge. We are trying to be ready as a society for that change. And I'm following what you, Piotr, said about conducting experiment, setting up a company as an experiment. Most of you in the audience, you're probably very much aware of lean model, a business model, a canvas, which is very much conducting an experiment. And what it's in my role in the Foundation for Polish Science, what I like to do with the researchers who reach out to us asking for help, could you help us how to even start to think about commercialization? I like to challenge them with very, very simple lean model canvas table. Just ask yourself a few questions. What kind of problem I'm solving? What kind of challenge I'm addressing? What could be my answer to that challenge? And how I'm going to proceed, that's checking my hypothesis. So the baby steps. For everyone here, just baby steps. And with each step, we are closing to our goal.
Okay, so we should conclude. So my question is, if you provide, maybe we start from Ala, if you could provide some conclusion and let's say if you want to introduce only one single advice, what should we do to accelerate the science commercialization? What you will choose?
My message would be to the researchers. Again, I think the researchers is where everything starts from. I'm going to echo what everybody said about thinking very globally about the need for the technology that you try to commercialize, thinking very global about the IP as well, about the regulatory strategy. And while you think globally about it, also do have trust. Don't let this fear that maybe you have of people trying to use your brain to take advantage of it. Try not to be held by that. Don't lose entirely all the cautiousness, right? But do be trustful and be adventurous too. Take risks in that trusting. I think the researchers across the globe that are successful in commercializing their innovation have to really adjust to the world. So it's a different world than you know right now, but it's not as scary as you might think. Learn a little bit of business language too. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you. Marcelina? Here, Lars, we go.
Okay, accept failures or potential failures. Just embrace it. And start to think about yourself more as a challenger than as a successful researcher, and try to redefinition what the successful researcher means. And it's not only means that you're great in publications and producing, and I'm using that word on purpose, producing papers, but try to identify success as looking for opportunities and embrace the failure.
Thank you. DJ?
So I would say, thinking globally, and the way we look at it in the US is think big or go home, okay? And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek, and that there's certain messages embedded in that global thinking. Both Google and Facebook started out thinking intellectual property was not important. And I can prove it to you through stories. I'm not going to tell the story, but look up the Google acquisition of Motorola Mobility, and it'll show you why Google spent $12 billion in buying a patent portfolio that they didn't think they needed, okay? So thinking about intellectual property ahead of time and thinking being global is very, very important. And that allows you to be, not only a company in Poland, in Central Eastern Europe, but a global company. What do you need to do to think that big? And that, I think, is a mindset. And we've talked about that mindset, is you think about where are you going to go public. And I know for entrepreneurs, it's very hard to think that ahead of time. Are you going to go public in NASDAQ? Are you going to go public in Kosdaq? Are you going to go public in Poland, right? I mean, those are important attributes to think about. And I think these are the people on stage who are going to talk to the entrepreneurs and get them ready. So again, I think, thinking how big are you going to be, and you will have failures in the process, many failures, and it's okay. That scar mark in the back is a good scar mark to wear. We're not in Japan. I say that because I've been in Japan many times, it's okay to fail. So I echo all of my wonderful panelists' opinion.
Thank you. Piotr?
Embrace failure. That's very important, and thank you, Marcelina, for saying that first. I think it's very hard to give any general purpose advice in general, and in this case, I think that it's important that everyone, each and every one of you, researchers, scientists, students, thinks very deeply about the path they want to take in life, because there is nothing inherently good or bad about becoming an entrepreneur, and there is nothing inherently good or bad about staying in the science world. There is enormous impact to be made on both sides of the table. We need to work together. And this is how, and we need smart and dedicated people on both sides. If you decide you want to go down this route, be prepared. It's a long road. It is at times painful, and you're going to have to worry about a lot of things you'll never have to worry about as a scientist. But at the same time, it is so exciting and energizing. And it feels really good to have built a team that is best in the world in what they do, that I I do encourage you to think about it at least. And yeah, I guess that's all.
Okay, thank you. So I could tell that a few things, two things exactly, from myself. So one thing is that scientists has a tend to do everything by themselves. So it's not always the best idea. So sometimes you could look for some partnerships and working together with people. So you have some strengths, you have some weaknesses, and you could find the people who support you with your weaknesses, and together you could do more and faster, of course. Time is important in many cases, especially for the startups. Time is important because the money, time is important. There is a lack of both. The other thing is just maybe I'm from university, so I'm feeling that the universities in Poland, especially, there is a lack of third path of career development. So I think that if there will be some definition of commercialization at the universities, commercialization path, that one people could be more didactic oriented, like teaching. The other groups are research oriented. And the third group could be just the commercialization-oriented people. That could help a lot because there will be ecosystem and huge society of the people who are thinking in the same way. At this moment, the people who are trying to develop something, build a startup, are just strangers at the universities. They are not connected with environment too much, so that is, I think, the weaknesses of the whole ecosystem in Poland. Okay, but we are at the end of the panel, so thank you, panelists.